going on, guys? It's the Inside the Blue podcast, and today breaking down the New York Rangers' unfortunate playoff loss against the Florida Panthers in just 6 games. The Rangers season is over. It is so upsetting. I thought this team really had it to go all the way in for a long playoff run. They get all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, but are unable to beat the Florida Panthers, and this was a tough series all the way around. I mean, the Rangers only get 2 wins in this series, and from overtime, so they could not finish the Panthers in regulation. They had the chance to do it in one of the games, but they blew a 4-2 lead, and, Florida came back and made it a 4-4 game, but wasn't enough with Wenberg's tip-in. It's a heartbreaking loss. I see this team, and I really thought they had it, man. I thought this was the team, and everything was fitting into place with the 1994 script and all of that. Was I a believer in the 1994 script? Probably not. I thought it was cool with how things were happening in 1994 that were happening this season, like 7 wins in their first 7 playoff games. That happened in 2024, just like in 1994. But the script didn't have the Rangers winning the Stanley Cup. It's going to be between the Edmonton Oilers with Connor McDavid getting his chance at a Stanley Cup, and it's Alexander Barkov and his Panthers trying to get a Stanley Cup after being eliminated in the Stanley Cup against the Vegas Golden Knights the previous season. Got to give a lot of props to this Florida team. They are built extremely, extremely well, and they did a lot of good things in this series, and they pinned the Rangers in their own zone a lot of times, and it was at times where the Rangers were lucky to get the puck out, or if anything, just ice the puck, and that's not going to win you a playoff series. When you're getting dominated in your own end, you're never going to win a playoff series like that, and that's why I find it very frustrating that the Rangers weren't able to win this series and match Florida's play, really. I didn't think there was really a whole game, a whole 60 minutes of them, matching up with Florida well. I think it was more just Florida pinning them into their own zone and hoping that the Rangers can find a lucky bounce or, an icing, right? The Rangers iced the puck a ton of times. It cost them a few times as well, and that's what Florida does. They're a team that's hungry on the puck, and they do a lot of good things well, but got to give it to Florida, man. They're probably the Stanley Cup favorite over the Edmonton Oilers by a slight bit. But they face the better team, the New York Rangers. I mean, yes, did the Rangers win the President's Trophy in the regular season? Yes, but I think with the New York Rangers, there is some stuff to build on with this lineup. A lot is going to change in free agency. We're going to break that down in a few minutes, but I like the Rangers team. I thought there was a lot of good. I think their trade deadline, looking back at it, was poor. I don't think it was very aggressive, but maybe it's next year. Maybe it's next year that they don't hold on to a first-round pick and they put it all in. They put all the chips in that Chris Drury has, and they try to go for a top winger or whatever it is. But it's frustrating for sure, but the New York Rangers have a lot to look forward to in this offseason. A lot of positives, though, in this season that I felt. I felt that this New York Rangers team had a lot of positives, and I think it's from some of their young guys. And I think Alexis Lafreniere is definitely the guy to talk about in the offseason of what's he going to get for his next contract and what's he going to have for his next season. And I think the guy could be a 70-point scorer, and you could definitely make an argument that he could be close to a point per game. He was almost a point per game in the playoffs as we get into the playoff points for kind of their top guys and kind of their core that I look to. And I look at this core. You look at the points and you don't think it's that bad, but when you see how many goals they scored, it kind of falls on them. So, Artemi Panarin, nearly a point per game, 15 points in 16 games played, just 5 of those being goals, one of those being in the Game 6 Eastern Conference Final with just a minute left. So, that goal was kind of useless. It gave some of the Rangers false hope, but definitely wasn't enough. Chris Kreider, 12 points in 16 games played, 8 of those being goals. Adam Fox, 8 points in 16 games played, 0 goals. Mika Zibanejad, 16 points, 16 games played, 3 of those being goals. Trocheck, probably the best player of the entire playoffs in terms of forwards for the New York Rangers. 20 points in 16 games played, 8 of those being goals. And of course, we cannot forget about Alexi Lafreniere's playoff performance. 14 games played, 14 points, 16 games played, 8 of those being goals. He flourished, and he really showed that when he has confidence, he can do all these sort of tricks and moves. He goes coast to coast and beats Bobrovsky in a game. He goes with a nice backhander. He scores a bunch of goals in this series. And I was proud of Lafreniere because he was a guy that I marked in the regular season at the start of it that he needed to be good this year. And he has definitely been good this year. But, of course, can't forget about Igor Shesterkin. Faced 524 shots in 16 games played, and it had a .926 save percentage. Rangers were outshot 13 of those 16 games, and I bet probably 3 of those games that they weren't outshot was probably against the piss-poor Washington Capitals. But unreal performance from Chesty. I mean, he was outstanding. He is due for a contract in 2025, so I think he could potentially get north of $12 million. That's what his camp might be asking for, and if you're Chris Drury, you have to probably give him that with how he's been with the New York Rangers. But got a feel for Igor Shesterkin, and kind of round off this podcast. It's kind of giving me the off-season moves that I think the Rangers could make, or kind of what I feel that they didn't do well. And the Rangers got outworked at times and out-physicaled. The physicality from Florida was too much, and you thought, with Matt Rempe being in the lineup, it wouldn't be that, but nope. Matt Rempe played 2 minutes in Game 5, and I don't think you're going to see him in Game 6, and we didn't, and I'm not shocked. They put Johnny Brzezinski in to add some speed. Johnny Brzezinski is nothing but an AHL player, in my opinion. I don't think he gets much time next year with the roster, probably stays in the AHL. But getting into the offseason, $11 million to spend in this offseason, but that could change. And I think some of the changes that I believe, if this was a perfect offseason, it's moving on from Jacob Trouba, the captain. And I know he's the captain, blah, blah, blah. He sucked in this playoffs, and he stole this series. And he was physical, but to a physical, just elbows after elbows. He nearly took Evan Rodriguez's head off. Trouba's got to go. I don't care where you send him, whether it's Utah. The guy is getting $8 million to be bad. And as a captain, I don't think really much people in the locker room really take his words very seriously. And as a captain, you would think that he's the guy to rely on. Jacob Trouba was in the box more than any player in this series. But they're pending UFAs, Jack Roslovic, Alexander Wennberg, Gustafsson, Ruido, and Wheeler. Maybe Gustafsson comes back out of those 5 players I mentioned. Their RFAs are Schneider, Lindgren, and Kakko. Kakko's a tough one because you don't know really what you're going to get next year. He didn't have much to offer last year, or this year really, in the playoffs, especially just 2 points. And he didn't play every game in the playoffs. He got scratched. So I think Lindgren and Schneider are definitely going to get some of that chunk of $11 million. I don't know what it's going to be. Hopefully they take team-friendly deals because I do want to see the Rangers go out and get a top right wing. Whether it's Jonathan Marchessault, so the long shot is probably Sam Reinhart, but I think with moving Goodrow and Trouba, it could potentially definitely get that deal done, hopefully. But that's really going to wrap it up. An unfortunate way to end the season. And, yeah, this has pretty much been the Inside the Blue podcast. Thank you guys for tuning into all the New York Rangers content, and I appreciate all of you guys and all of the subscribers, all of the viewership. But anyways, this is Vin, and this has been the Inside the Blue podcast, and I'm signing off. See ya.